my ultimate reading list for all things minimalism, slow living, intentional parenting, and overall living a life where of more contentment and peace and joy no matter where you are. You pick up just one from this list, I promise you will be changed for the better. In classic minimal fashion, I don't actually have all the books with me because I've gotten them from the library or they're on Audible, take up less space. I'm living my message right now. On the topic of slow living minimalism, the first one I have quoted many times on this channel is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Comer. He touches on essentially how in our modern world, the normalization of hurrying has caused a lot of heartache, a lot of things, broken things that we've seen in the world. And so it was really applicable for me for parenting, for the things that I owned and what I was contributing in and my relationships. And it was the first book that kind of kicked off this whole journey that kind of made me thirsty for more of that minimalism, slow living journey that I went on that eventually led me to start this channel. Number 2, this is an OG, straightforward, The Minimalist Home by Joshua Becker. I feel like everyone that's into minimalism has read this book, and I think it's for a really good reason. If you want a no frills, no fuss guide to decluttering, minimizing, why you would want to, inspirational stories from others, it is a step-by-step guide going through your whole house. I found it extremely practical. If you feel really overwhelmed, like you really don't know where to start, and you want a simple, practical guide of someone that's gonna walk you through it, combined with inspirational stories from others to keep you motivated, this is a great book. The next book in this category is Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. If you watched my video on eliminating constant overstimulation, yep, that's what it's called. You'll hear me talk about this book a lot, as well as my digital minimalism video that I made. I loved this book for a very straightforward guide on becoming a digital minimalist or figuring out a way to minimize your technology for a less cluttered, stimulated, stressed out mind. I find that with minimalism, it's very easy to talk about our stuff because that's kind of like what's in our everyday. But I think that now in our modern age, our tech clutter is probably even more threatening to our peace, our pace of life, and our relationships and our mental health than we realize. It just really challenges the notion that you need to be on certain platforms, and it kind of paints an alternative picture of what your life could be like, and I found it extremely inspirational. This is one of my favorite books of all time, Obs Child by Brendan Manning. This is the description. We bought into the lie that we are only worthy of God's love when our lives are going well. But God longs for us to deeply believe and know that He loves us and accepts us. He calls for us to remove our mask and establish an honest and deep relationship with Him. This book, for me, the heart behind slowing down and minimizing my stuff is because I do not want anything to distract me from my main priorities in life. And for me, that is my faith, my family, my relationships. This book was very helpful for me to create more intimacy in my walk with the Lord, and it radically altered the way that I saw other people and the grace that I was able to extend other people. The next book is The Lifegiving Home by Sally and her daughter, Sarah Clarkson. In our deepest hearts, we want our homes to be a place where our spirits are filled, a life-giving haven of warmth, rest, and joy that will encourage everyone who enters it, a welcoming respite in an isolated culture. It's like half storytelling, half wisdom between a mom and then a daughter's mindset, so you get like both of them, about creating a home, how you cultivate space for those deep relationships as your kids grow older, welcoming people in, allowing them to feel loved and cared for. It was so inspiring to me as a mom who has a dream of like her kids, like having a whole bunch of kids that grow up and their friends and people over and the kind of home that I want to create. And to me, that's what slow living, like that's what it's actually about. Slow living and minimalism are avenues for me to create a life that is very in line with my values. All right, now in the section of kind of relationships, motherhood, marriage, how we relate to other people, all those beautiful, wonderful, complicated things. The first book is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend. This is actually their follow-up book. It's Boundaries in Marriage, but their first one is fantastic. It looks just like this, except it just says boundaries with the pencil. In the New York Times bestseller Boundaries, Doctors Henry Cloud and John Townsend help you learn when to say yes and know how to say no in order to take control of your life and set healthy boundaries for your spouse, children, friends, parents, coworkers, and even yourself. If you are like me and you kind of identify with that, like, I was an overachiever, I was in hustle culture, I people pleaser, perfectionist, usually we struggle with boundaries because we do not know where we end and someone else begins. And even further so, learning how to set boundaries in a very loving and gracious way. And I literally think that it should be like a coming of age book for everybody when they're entering into like mature relationships. The next book, it's kind of a duo because I couldn't pick and they kind of go well together, so do with this what you will. They're both by the same authors though, and it is The Whole Brain Child, and then they wrote kind of a companion follow-up called No Drama Discipline. These have been such a blessing to my husband and I. The authors explain and make accessible the new science of how a child's brain is wired and how it matures. By applying these discoveries to everyday parenting, you can turn any outburst, argument, or fear into a chance to integrate your child's brain and foster vital growth. And then this kind of uses this information, the No Drama Discipline, to integrate it into tangible strategies to teach, to disciple, all while really focusing on like a connection first kind of strategy to parenting. I have found it to be extremely helpful. You can actually still tell because I have a pen in it and I'm still writing notes in it. This is my second time reading it. The next book is literally by the same person. You can tell I really love Dr. Dan Siegel's work. I have mentioned this on my channel before. It is a book called Parenting from the Inside Out: How a Deeper Self-Understanding Can Help You Raise Children Who Thrive. It is basically all about making the connections between your childhood, how you were raised, working through that so that you are not reacting to your own childhood or even your own narratives of your life while you are raising your child. It is a very powerful book. Let's all just agree that parenting will bring up old stuff for you. It just will. It's a gift. It is an invitation for us to work through it and to heal and to not let it control our parenting. It even has at the end of each chapter like exercises. It talks about our attachment style, development, securing healthy emotions. Very helpful. The last book in this section is called Simplicity Parenting by Kim John Payne and Lisa Ross. This is like if you combine slow living, minimalism, and parenting into one, using the extraordinary power of less to raise calmer, happier, and more secure kids. I'd say that this is one of the more cohesive books in the parenting section in that it covers things like meal times and how much stuff they have and their activities, and even talking about like really adult things around your kids, and helps you just kind of navigate all of these different areas of a child's life. And it really makes you think about your own life, where we can bring simplicity and why simplicity really is what kids need, and I think adults, to thrive. This is kind of my holistic health, slow living category. My first one, oof, is this a good book? When the Body Says No by Gabor. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name. Is it Gabor? Is it Gabor? Gabor Mate. It's so good, y'all. It is so good. Modern research is confirming the age-old wisdom that emotions are inseparable from our health and physiology. Repressed emotions bring on stress that can lead to disease. In this internationally best-selling book, he draws on cutting-edge science, his decades of experience, and stories to examine the role hidden stresses plays in an array of diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, IBS, multiple sclerosis, arthritis, and cancer. Truly one of those books that makes you rethink everything that you knew about physical health. I think pairs so beautifully with the slow living and minimalism movement, because as you realize, like, living a modern life, and I'm talking the pace of life, how we all emotionally process, like what is normal, that will not lead to a well life. It paints the picture very clearly that we are integrated beings. Like, we were not created, our bodies over here, our minds over here, our emotions over here, everything is connected. And I am so passionate about that because, truth be told, that is how I found holistic medicine, and that is how I was able to begin healing my years worth of hormone issues, PCOS. I was told I would never have a regular period. That's not true now. Like, all of these things I was told when I was young, because our medical system, I think, is very segregated in its knowledge. Learning to look at myself as an integrated person, and that my health is a reflection of all of that. My next book, this is a doozy. Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Westler. It is heartbreaking to me that there are so many women walking around who are not harnessing like the feedback and the power of knowing and tracking and understanding their cycle. Every month, women get a kind of report card as to how we're doing, from stress, from our hormones, from our gut health. Like everything is reflected in that cycle. And the truth is that a lot of us were just not taught it. We weren't grown up knowing how to interpret the signs of our cycle, what a healthy cycle was. I got this when I was 19. Literally, I got it the day after the doctor told me, you're never gonna have a regular cycle. And it taught me how to track my cycle, not just to track my cycle and know what everything's meaning, but to use my cycle as a feedback mechanism so that I can be more in touch with my body and what my body is trying to tell me. This idea of slow living is living more in tune with how we were designed to live. And to me, being in touch with my body, knowing my body, especially like really knowing my cycle, they go hand in hand for me. The next book on my holistic health, this is a very specific book, but I find it to be so helpful. Real Food for Pregnancy by Lily Nichols. It is an extremely comprehensive look at supporting a woman's body through pregnancy with nutrition. Everything in here is so backed by research, but she does not take common narratives, like things that are like, oh, you shouldn't eat this. These like assumptions made about what pregnant women should or should not be eating. And she's like, well, let's actually look at the data and let's actually look at the best way that we could nourish ourselves for a healthy pregnancy. I have it linked in my course as well. I find it to be an incredibly helpful resource for anyone. You're wanting to conceive, you are pregnant, you're recovering postpartum. This is just a great like starter, I'd say. Last book that I love that really talks about slow living and being more in line with our design is The First 40 Days. It introduces you to what cultures around the world have been doing traditionally in that postpartum season. It's that first 40 days after you give birth. What a glorious and important and special time that is. How traditional cultures care for their moms, how we can kind of implement some of those traditions into our own life, and the importance of rest, recovery, and nourishing the new mom. To me, it's like the opposite of bounce back culture. Like this book is the counterculture book for postpartum. And I want it to be in the hands of every mom or mom-to-be. I will have all these books linked below. So if you think I missed one or there's one that just rocked your world that you want to recommend, please put it below. I am Jess and I make videos on all of these things: minimalism, slow living, intentional motherhood. If you are into that, I'd love to see you join our community. I will see you in the next video.